Distinguished Sergei, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, over the past 5 years, the Moscow Conference on International Security, organized by the Russian MOD, has taken an important place in the range of the academic and practical events dedicated to defense and political aspects. Competent participants who maintain a truly expert-like dialogue, a busy agenda covering key issues of the present time, enable us to conduct a comprehensive assessment of risks and threats and identify ways for their neutralization. The situation in the world is not becoming more stable or predictable. On the contrary, we witness the mounting tensions both on the global and regional level. We face further erosion of the international law and attempts to use force in order to promote our own interests and strengthen our own security at the expense of the security of other countries, and to curb by any means the objective process of the establishment of the multiple world. And, we have to concentrate our efforts to counter real, not imaginable threats. And problems to counter international terrorism will be in the focus of the conference, because terrorism has become really unprecedented. And for the first time in history, terrorists took upon themselves to create a state, a caliphate, with their own territory, population, and misanthropic ideology. Much has been said at various levels in order to intensify the struggles with the global evil. And the recent communique by the foreign minister of G7 in Lucca reads about the exclusive importance of international cooperation in this area. I quote, "Countering terrorism and violent extremism, bringing perpetrators to justice remain top priority for the international community." End of quote. However, words are words, but in practice, no progress has been made. The establishment of a truly anti-terrorist front, as was proposed by President Putin in September 25, is obstructed by double standards and selfish interests. Russia continues their efforts to consolidate world community countering terrorism. We stand for the imposition of the comprehensive trade and economic embargo in accordance with Article 41 of UN Charter to be imposed on the ISIS-controlled territory. Another important task is the adoption of rules of responsible behavior of the states in the area of information and communication technologies, or ICT, that would exclude and prevent any interference in the internal state affairs of the countries and the use of the ICT for military purposes. And our task is to prevent crises and not to wait for their burst. And we stand for the drafting of the Universal Treaty, that is a comprehensive criminal law convention countering crime with the use of ICT. The successful struggle with terrorism is impossible without stable coping with multiple conflicts in the Middle East and North Africa. A recent missile strike, U.S. missile strike at Shayrat Abbas in Syria, which became a gross violation of the international law and an act of aggression against a sovereign state, on the contrary aggravates existing problem and removes the prospect for the establishment of the broad anti-terrorist front. And I can draw a parallel with the events of 2003 in Iraq, which ended up with the destruction of the country and the emergence of ISIS. I don't think that there is a need to explain one more for this audience that it could be a dangerous continuation, and the provocation which happened in Shaykhun Khun on April 4 requires professional investigation with the participation of OPCW and the representative of the Security Council permanent members. And the blocking of such initiatives on the part of well-known countries only confirms the doubts and the distant intention of those countries in the Middle East. The upsurge of terror certainly should not downplay other dangerous challenges the world is facing with. We have a serious concern about the degradation of the situation in the Korean Peninsula resulting from the continuation of nuclear and missile programs by Pyongyang, and also with indiscriminate and proportional growth of military activities by the USA and their allies in the world. And the expedited deployment in the south of the peninsula of the THAAD system, which is an element of the global ABM system on the USA, is an extremely destabilizing factor. We are fully agree with the consolidated position of the international community concerning the policy of Pyongyang, and we confirm our commitment to the respective resolution of the UN Security Council. At the same time, it's quite obvious that the use of force may lead us to catastrophe for the Korean Peninsula and Southeast Asia. We propose to the partners, and in the framework of the East Asia Summit meetings, the measures to build architecture of security for open, non-aligned countries. Our approaches are shared by China, India, and many ASEAN countries. I can only also point out that models of development can be clearly seen as fruitful in the framework of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. As for the other part of the world, in the Atlantic, certainly there is a great conflict potential which is of our concern, and it is fueled by single-sided actions of the North Atlantic Alliance, and Sergei described those actions. The unilateral of the European segment of the global ABM system by the USA remains to be a very serious obstacle. This action changes the balance of forces in the area of offensive arms. The availability of this anti-missile umbrella may lead to the strengthening of the illusion of invincibility and impunity, and may lead to the lowering of the threshold of the use of the nuclear weapons. Development of conventional strategic weapons is also a negative factor, as well as the statements about the possibility to deploy weapon systems in space. More and more questions arises about the unpreparedness of some countries to ratify the CTBT treaty, and we are calling upon our partners to start building the zone of equal and indivisible security, as it was recorded in the decisions of the OSCE and NATO-Russia summit meetings. In this respect, I can state with satisfaction that in Europe we can hear more and more voices in favor of the re-establishment of the dialogue in the interests of efficient solutions of multiple problems, and also the settlement of the internal Ukrainian crisis would also contribute to the lowering of tensions. Unfortunately, in Kiev, it is the party of war that has all the power. Armed provocations along the line of contact continues. Dear colleagues, the entire history testifies to the fact that it's not the military people but politicians who start wars, and it's quite obvious that in order to be successful in such endeavors as countering global terrorism, drug trafficking, organized crime, WMD proliferation is not possible unless we give up the philosophy of hegemonism and inclusiveness or exclusiveness. The return to the roots recorded in the Charter of UN is much in demand now in the principle of international life, including including sovereign equality of countries, non-interference in their domestic affairs. And Russia, cooperating with their partners and like-minded countries, will continue our effort in order to strengthen healthy foundations in global affairs. We are prepared to work together and gently look for the settlements and ways to address all the challenges. We call upon all our partners to do so. Any other way will lead us to nowhere. Thank you very much, and I wish every success to the conference.